The White House is reportedly bent on preventing President Biden from having a run-in with Russian President Vladimir Putin. While the leaders attend the G20 summit that's happening next month as Russia's war on Ukraine enters a 239th day, Putin is implementing martial law now, which starts today in parts of Ukraine, recently claimed by Moscow. Joining me right now is senior fellow and military expert for defense priorities, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Colonel, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. What do you make of what Putin is doing? I mean, he has identified 4 areas of Ukraine, and he said these are now areas of Russia.
Yeah, I think what he's done is he's just laid down the gauntlet and said that we are not going anywhere. We are all in, and showing even his own people that they are fully committed to winning in this war. And, when all the mobilization they've done on top of that and the preparations they've made, for continued offensive operations, potentially as early as next month, shows, I believe, that he is genuinely committed to this, and that foretells a long, bloody war coming up this summer, this winter.
It's unbelievable what has happened in terms of our adversaries, and you and many of your colleagues in military predicted this, that botched withdrawal from Afghanistan would spark our adversaries to go on the march. It's exactly what's happening. There is open source reporting that says that China will invade Taiwan within the next 18 months, and then the head of the U.S. Navy is warning that the American military must be prepared for the possibility of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan before 2024. Admiral Mike Gilday says that he's the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations, told the Atlantic Council yesterday, quote, "When we talk about the 2027 window, in my mind, that has to be a 2022 window or potentially a 2023 window. I don't mean at all to be alarmist. It's just that we can't wish that away." Colonel, what are you expecting?
Yeah, I agree with that timeline. I think that the dangers will considerably rise in there. And, you just saw Xi Jinping in his speech earlier this week at the 20th Party Congress, where he's going to be given a 3rd term in Chinese as the leader of China. And he said point blank that this is a high priority for us. And we are going to get unification one way or the other, and we will not renounce force. So what that tells us is that the United States needs to be, a lot more busy about trying to work out diplomacy and working with the Taiwan authorities to help them defend themselves, but also to lower the tensions, because we don't want to get into a situation where all we do is push back and threaten militarily, because that's probably going to just encourage China all the more.
Well, I mean, yesterday I spoke with the former Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who was my special guest yesterday on this program, talking about the administration's push to return to an Iran nuclear deal. Here again, we're looking at this administration strengthen the hand of dictators. We've got people on the street in Iran, chanting death to the supreme leader, and yet we're still pursuing this Iran nuclear deal, which would strengthen the hand of our adversary, the dictators in Iran. Here's what Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday. Watch.
You can't trust Iran on any deal because they cheat, they lie. Now, do we want the Ayatollahs who chant death to Israel, death to America, to have the means to deliver nuclear-tipped warheads to every city in the United States? No. Now, the nuclear deal doesn't stop it, it facilitates it. The only policy that will work against Iran and other rogue nations who seek to arm themselves with nuclear weapons is a combination of crippling sanctions and a credible military option. That is the only thing that could work, and I hope that the United States comes back to this policy.
Colonel, what are your thoughts here? I mean, there are still concerns that there are kamikaze drones made by Iran that have been used by Russia in Ukraine. So clearly the Iranians are backing Russia. Iran's UN representative is now denying the Western allegations that Tehran supplied Moscow with the drones, calling the allegations disappointing, Lieutenant Colonel.
Well, I mean, he can say disappointing all he wants, but there are some other lower-ranking Iranian officials who have actually confirmed that that was going on. And not only that, but that potentially hundreds of other ballistic missiles are going to be included in that package. But as for what anybody says or doesn't says, we have evidence on the ground. I mean, you see it with your own eyes that there are literally hundreds of these Iranian-built kamikaze drones in Russian hands that are being attacked in Ukraine. So there's point blank, it's certainly true.
Tiana Lowe, jump in.
Colonel, I want to just ask, just to pivot back to China real quickly. So at the same time that the yuan is depreciating rapidly against the greenback, it's coincided with, at this party Congress, Xi Jinping mentioning security more than the economy, which, if to my understanding, is the first time that has happened in decades, if ever, at these party congresses. How much is this, escalated potential for aggression, the risk of China's imposition into Taiwan related to China sort of letting this currency fall, to this recession that they're trying to stave off, and to all these rate cuts that they're doing at a time when the rest of the global central banks are raising rates?
I think that China recognizes that they're in a difficult situation financially, and they have their lowest rate of growth, I believe, since 1972, and they're desperate there. They're trying, this zero COVID lockdowns things that's going on, which doesn't seem to be working at all. But for whatever reason, she does not seem to want to back off of that. So it could be that he's talking up the security issue more to try to talk about issues that are of emotional importance to China, the Taiwan issue, to say, hey, we're focused on this. Don't look over here so much, because I think that the biggest threat to the Chinese leadership is the economy, and I think they know that.
I just wonder if we're going to see a more provocative China after Xi Jinping is anointed dictator for life. Leo, jump in here.
Well, I think what we're seeing is this theory that globalization of the economy would be the great protector of the world against war. It's starting to break down. And that's what happens when we raise up an economy like China. We've given them the power. They're now starting to flex that muscle. And as their economy starts to wither, you're going to see them become more aggressive because they have to. So as countries start to pull back into their own borders, this opens up the door to these conflicts, and I think some of the security that we'd hoped would be there is starting to wane.
It's also very dangerous, the fact that we are so reliant on China for the production of so many important goods. I mean, I'm talking about pharmaceuticals, I'm talking about semiconductor chips in Taiwan. We just don't have the confidence in terms of being independent, Colonel.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that really underscores just the challenge that we have, because there are so many things that we get from China that are necessary for our own economic well-being. Because we can't just, cut China off and not do business with them, because our economy is so tied up in the success that we can have if we open those markets. So it's a delicate balance that we have to have. But I think that you can see, to your point a second ago, that there's a lot of movement towards nationalistic views all over the world right now.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to be careful with, because that could ultimately work against our own national interests.
Colonel, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much. Come back soon. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis joining us. Thank you, sir. Quick break and then a shocking number.